fight it out.
Yeah, some other place I go to, there's like some people who are they're just so angry, and it's like, why?
What does this get you?
Right. You know what I do when I encounter something in a fandom or an industry that I normally would like, but I don't, that specific thing, I go find some shit I do like.
Pretty much.
It's gonna be rare that you're gonna hear me just straight up knock something, unless I'm like in the moment. Like when I played Kingdom Hearts 3, and I didn't hate it, but like it falls apart towards the end for me. So
I've kind of like come to that point where was I going with this? Like I had something in mind, but
was it about positivity or negativity in terms of
yes.
media?
I've just kind of come to terms with the fact that, like, the things I really, like, I enjoy enough that I would want to talk about, like, the people that I could do that with, I don't want to talk to those people.
Well, I just try to find common ground with people. That's kind of the main thing that I do. And also, if it's not something that I particularly care for, I might not just go, oh, I don't like it. I'll be like, I'm glad that you like it. And sometimes I like hearing people talk about things even I don't like, because then I understand why someone could like this thing I don't understand.
Like, I absolutely don't really talk to anybody about Fire Emblem at all, ever, because, I feel like that's just practicing good self-care.
That might be sensible. I don't know. I play the games, but I'm not like super deep into them. And I haven't ever finished one because my ADHD is a bitch. That's why, basically. I can't sustain enough focus on it for long enough to actually finish it.
But hey, now you can get the Switch version.
I might actually do that, because there's a good chance I might actually finish that one. It worked for Xenoblade. I finished that game. I never thought I'd finish that game. And even better, like, I'm still playing it. I still am trying to fill out certain things in it. So I'm just kind of like, I don't play it like constantly like I used to.
Ah.
That's the only difference. I love that movie.
It's like, hey, super, I'll just counter super him. Nope. Game was like, no,
it's funny because
take
Xenoblade
the
is
L.
a game by all. Go ahead. Yeah, you take the L. Yeah. See, it's funny because Xenoblade is one of those games, like, I would never have thought that that game would have hooked for me, but it did. And I can't point to any one thing in it that kept me kept me hooked in long enough to at least finish the main scenario. And that's really weird for me, because usually I'm pretty good at figuring that out. And like, I'm the kind of person, like, I will look at the media that I'm consuming and again try to figure out, why do I like this? Because I want to figure out how to find more things that I like. But
yeah.
Also, I like to poke fun at the absurdity in those things, and I like to examine the flaws in those things and try to figure out how they got there. It's probably why I like wrestling so much, because there's lots of stuff to do that with.
Sure, okay, we'll do the Soul Throw Super, that's fine, whatever. Not Soul
Yep.
Spark.
Easy.
These inputs are exactly the same.
Yep. Interesting segue to that, basically. So Raw and SmackDown had a really hard time with ratings recently, and they've had trouble with attendance. So they've actually been actively trying things to shake up their production and how things are going on their show. So they've actually got new people that are, like, they've publicly announced the new people who are going to be running, the creative on their shows. Raw is going to be helmed by, or is being helmed at this point now by Paul Heyman.
Who? Sorry.
Paul Heyman used to run ECW.
Ah.
Anybody who would, basically that's a lot of people's favorite wrestling organization that lasted for a little while, but basically, it basically only existed in its highest form off on the skin of its teeth. Like it was having trouble with money for a while. And they folded, and eventually WWF or WWE basically bought out all their stuff. And Paul Heyman eventually,
Vince McMahon is want to do,
as he does, yes. And eventually he has become an on-screen character, but he's also already been very heavily involved in their creative. Like he's helped people with their stories and stuff like that. But basically, he is running Raw now.
Mm-hmm.
And the first night that after they announced it, they had this ridiculous sequence right at the start of the show where two guys were having a Falls Count Anywheres match, and the way the match ended was one of them got put through the wall, like the stage wall,
mm-hmm.
which is like this giant LED board just for people who obviously don't watch the show. And so he puts them through this wall, and they apparently hit some sort of power center, and there was just this ridiculous explosion, or set of explosions. And you've seen stuff like that before, but then they tried to inject some realism in it. They hung the screen from like this weird angle, and like they treated it with severity that they normally don't treat this sort of thing with. And it was interesting and different, and you could tell that someone was actively trying to do something out of the normal with that.
We're all taught, that's fine.
Which was actually, pretty cool. And then they did something even weirder. There are these two characters on the show. Some people are gonna know Maria Kanellis, who used to wrestle in WWE back in the 2000s. She left. She married a dude named Mike Bennett, and they debuted on WWE as Mike and Maria Kanellis. What I'm saying here is that Mike took Maria Kanellis' name when they married. Not in real life, but that's the character that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, they're just the obnoxious couple. Like, literally, their theme song is this 80s rock ballad about the power of love. It's amazing.
Like people who misinterpret the song "Had the Time of My Life."
Yeah.
Which is actually about divorcing, more or less.
Oh, that's sad. Well, it's funny that you should mention that, because basically they're changing their gimmick. They did this obnoxious power couple thing for a few years. But what they did on Raw was, first of all, they had him and her go up against the current champions, male and female champions, which happen to be in a relationship, Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch. And they're making a big deal about it. They've made it a story, and it's really weird. But basically, they had a mixed tag match. And when it got to the point where Maria had to be involved in the match, she refused to fight. She's like, wait, I'm pregnant. And she's actually legitimately pregnant. They apparently had just signed a new deal, and they found out like after the fact. But basically, the match stops at that point, and Mike is like, how are you pregnant? And he's like, how am I pregnant? I'm wondering that too, because you sure as heck couldn't have done it. and I'm like, what? What's happening here? So they're doing this bit where Maria is clearly having some kind of an episode, and she's like acting like he's not man enough to impregnate her or something crazy like that. And so later on, they kind of almost get back together, and she sends him for ice cream, and he's like, non-fat, right? And she's like, how dare you? Are you saying I'm fat? And so then he goes and gets it, and he comes back, and it's ice cream and pickles, by the way, the stereotypical pregnant food thing, pregnant woman food. So then she comes back with the ice cream and the pickles, like, I can't eat that, I'll get fat. And I'm like, wait, what? And it's just really weird.
Wrestling,
course,
everybody.
the one thing is, yeah, it came. I guess the one good thing that came out of it is Mike is a cruiserweight, and so he's on another show called 205 Live, and one of the reasons why they're having such a hard time is because they've been trying to fight for him to get opportunities on this show, and either he doesn't get opportunities, or when he does get them, he fails at them. So he blames the general manager of the show, who's also been running around trying to capture this. It's basically the hardcore title, but he's basically become obsessed with it. And he's not. So he basically will sometimes not be on the cruiserweight show, even though he's the guy supposed to be running it. And so they blame him for that. And so he just basically said, you know what? I'm just going to start ruining your show. So he just showed up during a match tonight, just runs in and just starts yelling up a storm. He starts running over to the announce table, grabbing all the papers and spreading them around. And eventually he has to get run off by security. So he's having a good time right now.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. And this 24/7 title, this hardcore title that they have, the idea, of course, that basically they can
challenge you at any point.
Yeah, and as long as there's a ref to count the pin, it's official. So what tends to happen is there's one guy that holds it, and like every single mid-carder that's not being used on the show on a regular basis right now ends up chasing them throughout whatever scene they happen to be. It's amazing. I basically, every time I describe it to somebody, I basically call them the mid-card horde. Like they're doing something and the mid-card horde shows up and chases them off. But basically Drake Maverick, this GM, has basically constructed like his own stories. Like he goes on social media. He started putting up posters of the other guy who was holding the title at the time. Like, have you seen this guy? So I can go pin him. And so he actually legitimately got married recently. And he ran off to get married right as he won the title. So then the guy who he won it from crashes his wedding, rolls him up immediately after they after they say I do. And then like he brings his wife to the show, and she's like, "Why are we here?" And then he eventually wins it, and then he did these sequences on Twitter where he was like, I'm on my honeymoon with my wife, and every clip that they show, he's like, "Yeah, I'm here with my wife," and then he raised the title over her face. Like she's in the background next to him, and he raises the title right over her face every time. It's amazing.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. They're having a real fun time with that, I can tell. And it just kind of fills in space where they can't figure out what else to do, for the most part. And every now and then they manage to loop it into an actual story.
Totally intentional. Nailed it.
Yep.
Every time I pray, I'm meant to do it. Every time somebody else does it, it's bullshit. The fighting game mantra.
It's funny, I'm actually wearing a Bob Ross shirt right now. No mistakes, only happy accidents. Nope.
Close. Dive kick. Foot dive.